We're here to break down the findings of the Justice Square Foundation's report on enforced disappearance. It's a crime that seeks to erase a person not just from society, but from the very protection of the law itself. It leaves a void, a silence that echoes for generations.
You see, the state-sponsored practice of making people vanish, it has a dark and very deliberate history. This is rarely an accident of conflict. No, it is a calculated tool of terror.
Back in 1941, Nazi Germany issued this decree. Its purpose was simple and absolutely chilling: to seize anyone resisting the regime and make them disappear into the night and fog. Families, entire communities were left with no information, no trial, no grave, just a terrifying veil of uncertainty. This was the genesis of enforced disappearance as a modern state policy.
So let's be very clear about what we mean here. This is the internationally recognized definition. It's really a three-part crime. First, the secret abduction. Then, the state's denial of any involvement. And finally, the victim's removal from all legal protections. They become a ghost, held in a legal black hole, their fate known only to their captors.
Legally, you have to understand, this act is not a single offense. It is a cascade of violations, a fundamental attack on the very foundations of human rights law. We call it a composite crime because in one single act, so many fundamental rights are violated. The right to liberty? Well, that's breached the moment of abduction. The prohibition of torture is almost always violated in the secret detention that follows. The right to a fair trial is completely eliminated. And often, tragically, the right to life itself is extinguished. Now, in the face of such a profound violation, the international community has drawn a clear and unambiguous line in the sand. There are several key international legal frameworks that all work together to outlaw this practice. The UN Declaration clearly defines the act and places responsibility on the state. The European Court of Human Rights, the ECHR, requires effective investigations. And most seriously, the Rome Statute classifies enforced disappearance as a potential crime against humanity. And this right here, this is the crucial threshold. When these disappearances aren't just isolated incidents, but are part of a widespread, systematic policy attacking a civilian group, they stop being just a domestic crime. They become a crime against all of us, a crime against humanity itself. So, the Justice Square report takes these legal principles and applies them to a specific and ongoing situation. Let's turn to our findings on how abductions have allegedly been transformed into state policy in Turkey. The central finding of our report is this. Since 2016, there has been a systematic and widespread campaign of abductions and enforced disappearances, and it's targeting individuals who are allegedly affiliated with the Gülen Movement. These are not random acts. They are part of a coordinated state policy.
The abduction rate in Turkey is over 100. It isn't an estimate from a third party.
This figure, over 100, this isn't an estimate from a third party. Turkish state officials themselves, including the former vice president and the National Intelligence Organization, or MIT, have publicly stated that they have brought over 100 people from various countries to Turkey through these operations. And this is where the report highlights a glaring contradiction. When disappearances happen inside Turkey, the authorities consistently deny any knowledge or involvement. But the abductions carried out abroad? Those are publicly framed as successful intelligence operations, even a source of national pride. The state denies in one arena what it openly boasts about in another. The case of Gökhan Türkmen really illustrates the pattern. He was abducted in February 2019. For 271 days, 9 months, his family heard nothing. They filed complaints, they pleaded with authorities, but the state provided zero answers. Then in November, just like that, he suddenly reappeared in police custody. His 9 months of existence were a blank, an official void. This pattern, disappearance, denial, and then a sudden reappearance in state custody, has been repeated in so many cases we've documented. So the question is, how can a practice like this persist? The report identifies a very specific mechanism: the deliberate cultivation of a culture of impunity. Impunity is not an accident, it's constructed. Our report outlines a 4-step process. First, a state policy targets a group. Second, when families file complaints, the judiciary fails to investigate, often closing the files. Third, emergency decrees have been used to grant legal immunity to officials carrying out these acts, shielding them from any criminal liability. And finally, there's a systemic failure of the judiciary to conduct independent, effective investigations. It all ensures that perpetrators are never held to account.
The impact of these acts, it extends far beyond the direct victims. It's a crime committed against families, against society, and ultimately against the truth itself.
For the families of the disappeared, life becomes a permanent state of anguish. Every single day is a cycle of hope and despair. This persistent uncertainty, it is a form of psychological torture, a deliberate cruelty inflicted not only on the victim, but on everyone who loves them.
The European Court of Human Rights affirms that the right to the truth is fundamental. It belongs to the victim, to their family, and to society as a whole. Because without truth, there can be no justice. Without justice, there can be no healing. And without accountability, this cycle of violence is simply destined to continue.
The ultimate goal of enforced disappearance is to control the narrative by erasing the facts, by silencing dissent, and by instilling a fear so profound that it suffocates all questions. But our report argues that truth does not disappear so easily. It's kept alive in the memories of families and in the files of investigators. It waits. Thank you for watching.